Hey everybody, I'm Dan McClellan. I'm a scholar of the Bible and religion. The fit for today is the Flash. Let's take a look at a video.
Our earliest manuscripts of our earliest gospel don't say anything about a resurrected Jesus appearing to anyone.
All right, here we go again.
All right, let's see it.
Now, a very common theme in Dan's videos, and this one is no exception, is that he will make statements that draw confusion or doubt around scripture or core teachings of Christianity. But he never says that this is his intention, and he never says that he doubts these things explicitly. So, for example, in this video that I'm responding to, he talks about how the earliest manuscripts of the earliest gospel don't mention any appearance stories of Jesus after his resurrection. And so the implicit claim here is that accounts of post-resurrection appearances of Jesus to disciples and others were just later creations because the story wasn't satisfying enough, thus calling into question the legitimacy of the resurrection accounts themselves, thus calling into question the truth of Christianity as a whole.
So a few things to say here. To begin, during the entire planning and making of that video, neither of those implicit points ever once entered my head in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. The point of that video was a fact that I find interesting enough in and of itself, without reference to any implication. I think it's fascinating that the Gospel of Mark likely originally ended at Mark 16:8, and that our intermediate and longer endings were likely added by later editors who were trying to supplement what they saw as an unsatisfactory ending. I think that is fascinating in and of itself. That's why I made the video. I am not constantly wringing my hands over or salivating over the implication. And anyone who's been around my channel for any appreciable length of time knows that folks who do wring their hands over or salivate over the implication have a harder time thinking critically, because that's precisely what gets in the way of clear critical thinking. So I don't think about those things. I don't need to think about those things. I make videos to address the points I make in the videos. And I am not shy about making points. I will make whatever point I feel I need to make. And I have already made videos where I've discussed the contradictions between post-resurrection appearances. For instance, in my video number McClellan 1972, I pointed out that there are irreconcilable differences between the stories of Mary at the empty tomb. I am not shy about any of this, but I'm also not here to try to tear down Christianity as a whole. I am a Christian myself. I am just here to share the data. And if I were too worried about the implication of sharing the data, I would not be here.
But Dan never says this explicitly, and in part, I think it's got to be because of intellectual cowardice. Because if he never makes a claim, then you never can prove him wrong because he's not making a claim. But he's leading you to the conclusion in your mind without ever saying it explicitly. So if you ever say you're wrong, there's nothing to be wrong about because he didn't make a claim.
I make claims in every single one of my videos, and I am not shy about making claims.
But this is obviously the conclusion that he's getting at, and it's the conclusion that many people in his comments have come to as well.
So a rather common occurrence is for someone to see a video of mine, to not like it, to want to criticize it, but to not have anything to criticize, because I'm just sharing facts. And so what they have to do in order to be able to criticize it, because they have an itch they need to scratch, is they'll make up an argument and attribute it to me, and then they'll attack that argument, and then that satisfies that intuitive impulse to criticize me. And there are two different types of arguments that are generally made up. One has to do with the content of the argument. The other has to do with the motivations for the argument. And I addressed the motivation issue in my video number McClellan 1983. And this creator is doing a 2-for-1, is trying to make up an argument about content and attribute it to me, and then trying to make up an argument about motivations and attribute it to me, and then they're attacking both of them. And both of them are absolutely laughable.
So with Dan's intellectual dishonesty and cowardice out of the way, let me explain why the conclusion that is naturally drawn from the statements he's making is actually false. So like I said, the implicit claim being made here is that since the earliest manuscripts of the earliest gospel do not mention anything about Jesus appearing to people after his resurrection, that means that the resurrection itself is just a made-up thing that was added later.
No.
But what if I told you there were books written before Mark that actually attest to Jesus appearing to people after his resurrection?
You would be stating the obvious.
In fact, there are 6 books that were written before Mark was written. That is Galatians, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians, 1st and 2nd Corinthians, and Romans. All of these refer to the resurrection.
Mark also refers to the resurrection.
And 1st Corinthians, which was written up to 20 years before Mark, actually outlines who Jesus appeared to and in what order.
And it conflicts with all the accounts we find in the Gospels.
So yes, even if the Gospel of Mark doesn't have specific accounts of Jesus appearing to people, we have earlier writings that do.
And I never said otherwise.
But Dan, you're probably not going to respond to this, just like you didn't respond to my other video, because you're probably too busy reading your comments from your sycophantic atheist fans who enjoy watching you draw people away from their faith, even while you are yourself a Mormon, and while you call yourself a Bible scholar, even though all of your claims can fall apart after just 5 seconds of research.
So 4 quick things by way of response. 1, I had no idea you made another video responding to me. I don't see all of the videos that I get tagged in every day. There are a lot of them. I don't spend much time reading the comments. I spend more time reading messages that people send me about how I have helped them with their faith, or how I have helped them repair or improve relationships with people of faith in their lives. Maybe the problem is that you're only doing 5 seconds of research. And also, nothing that I actually said in my video fell apart here. The only things that fell apart were the arguments that you made up and then attributed to me.
But if you do respond, I would love to engage in a conversation about this.
Sure doesn't sound like you would like to engage in conversation. But either way, no, I'm good.